Welcome to the only Danish podcast about pro wrestling. I'm the host, Nikolai Wagman, and this
I'm
is something thing that I look so much forward to. So the scene is yours, Missy.
I'm Missy Sampson. I'm a former professional wrestler from the United States. I'm now a coach, and I own the all women's promotion Belle2Bell. So how I got started, I started wrestling when I was 16 on the independents all over America. Did it for a little bit over 25 years. Was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, so I had to stop my in-ring career. And I sat at home for a few months. And then 2020 hit, which, as we all know, was the COVID pandemic. And Danny Cage, who is the owner and head coach of the world famous Monster Factory, the number one wrestling school in the world, reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about coaching?" And I said, "No." And then Danny talked me into it. So over 4 years now, I've been coaching at the Monster Factory. And then beginning of this year, I started Belle2Bell, which is all women's wrestling promotion. It's owned by me and booked by me solely. So it's owned by a former women's professional wrestler. Um, Everyone on our show, from our commentators to our ring announcer to the wrestlers to the refs, all female, all women. It's completely a women's based promotion that I started because I know what it was like for 25 years wrestling, either having to deal with promoters that would hit on you or make you feel like you had to be extra nice to them to, wrestle on their shows, to just the lack of opportunity for women in our industry. I don't know how it is over there in Denmark, but here in the States, it's still most wrestling shows are 80% male, you know? There may be one, maybe two women's matches. So while the number of women wrestlers has grown exponentially, the opportunities really had not. Um, and there had been an all women's promotion that was running that for months I tried to help run just to keep things smooth for the girls. I wasn't there the last couple of months. It kind of blew up. Apparently, I guess the promoter wasn't doing things he should have been doing. I wasn't there. But it blew up in a very public way here where three of their champions renounced their titles and publicly left the company.
Whoa.
Um, so the day that happened, I got hit up by people who knew I had been trying to help that company out. And one of the guys, Sean Carlson, who helps run an independent company here, 1CW, said, "Hey, we hope you're not taking this to heart. We know you tried, you did what you could, but hey, if you ever decide to do something on your own, let us know. We'd like to be supportive." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure." Not doing it. And then Danny Cage, again from the world famous Monster Factory, called me that afternoon, and he said, "You should run an all women's wrestling promotion out of the factory. Leave me out of it. Just do it." And I was like, "I'll think about it." Uh, Danny's real good about talking me into stuff. He's a horrible influence, that guy. Um,
Oh,
but then I called Gabby Ortiz, and who is a very good friend of mine. I've known her for years, very close to her. She's a Monster Factory student. And I was talking to her about it. And I said, if I did this, then I'd have to think up a name. And that was really the big hurdle for me, right? Like I could do the rest, but I got to come up with a good name. And she said to me, "I always thought if I ever ran a women's wrestling promotion, I'd call it Belle2Bell." And I
hmm.
said, "Well, can I steal that?" And she goes, "Yeah." And then we had the name. So then I'm like, I guess we have to do it now. So
Yeah,
started
actually,
putting things into motion, and yeah.
but it's actually so funny because if I could rewind it a little bit, you were talking about the wrestling scene and female wrestlers, because the problem actually booking female wrestlers in Denmark is that we only got two active female wrestlers. So,
Yeah.
so it is a little bit hard to do all female matches, because then we had to take someone from anywhere in Europe to get booked, the one we have here traveling around in Europe. So I think the
It would be
problem is that,
expensive to have to bring in
yeah, every time.
a whole roster every time. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I think actually the promoters are open to booking females. We actually have once a year here in Denmark a promotion called Body Slam has an all-female wrestling show just once a
Nice.
year. But it's actually amazing where they bring in female wrestlers from all over Europe.
That's amazing. And the other thing is, especially with you talking about the lack of female wrestlers in Denmark, the other reason that I wanted to make this company and make it all female is so that young girls can see that it's all female. It's all women running it, doing everything, and be inspired. You know, maybe to be a women's pro wrestler, but even if it's not that, to just chase their dreams, no matter how crazy it may seem. If it's your passion, just go after it.
Mm. Exactly, exactly. But I think actually it's so funny because here in Europe, I think especially Denmark, there is a growing interest in wrestling and also new female wrestlers coming into. So hopefully in the future we could have our own little female show actually with totally female wrestlers from Denmark. But wrestling is probably very, very niche here in Denmark.
But it has
So
to start somewhere.
yeah, the seeds have to be put in the ground.
Yeah, it
But
has to. It starts small, and then as more people start finding out about it, that it's even a possibility or that it's there, you'd be amazed how many indie promotions run across the world. And if the promoters aren't going out into the community and introducing themselves, how many of the people local to where the shows are run don't even know it's there? I didn't even know indie wrestling was a thing until I was 16, flipping
oh,
channels, and I found ECW, which happened to be, very close to where I live,
oh.
but I didn't even know indie wrestling existed until then.
No, and that's probably the problem actually here in Denmark. A lot of people don't know wrestling from way back when, from Hulk Hogan, the area, the Attitude Era, and so on. Actually, it's so funny every time I talk with people and telling about I'm doing a podcast about pro wrestling. People look at me like, "Yeah, well, I know Hulk Hogan and Macho Man," and then the knowledge stops it there.
Yeah.
Um, so, but Missy, if you could take it back because the idea and the way you wanted to build up this promotion, what was your moving thing, your idea, placing it and say, this is what I want to create, this is my wrestling promotion roster?
Well, I wanted to, first and foremost, I wanted to create a safe space for the women where they could come and create. I don't overproduce our shows. I book the matches, I book the girls, I put the matches in order, I do all that stuff, but I don't tell them you have to do this, you have to do that. I might have a particular finisher angle that I want to run, but it's very collaborative. And then for each individual match, I tell the girls, just go be creative. Just go have fun. Like, have fun and be safe. So
Yeah.
I wanted to create that space where it was open for creativity and some freedom. I wanted to mix, some of the newer girls with the more established girls. That's how people get experience in either lifting someone or being lifted. Clearly, budget's a concern. So most of our girls are either local or driving distance. We have a show next Saturday, which features the first fly-in, if you will, where I'm flying someone in to do the show, and that's Allison Kay, who has been
Mm.
seen on every major wrestling program that exists. If you're a TNA fan, she was Sienna there.
Mm.
She tag teams as the Hex with Marty Belle. She's been in the NWA, AEW. She was in the Mae Young Classic for WWE. Fantastic. But we have a girl who just turned 18. Her name's Becca Wiley, and she has cerebral palsy. She's the first female wrestler that we know of that wrestles with cerebral palsy. I've known her since she was a teenager. She was a huge fan. She used to come to the shows in Jersey. And then Monster Factory every summer runs a 1-week kids camp, wrestling kids camp. And
Mm.
she came to one of those, and she's just always been such a supporter of the girls. And, AK and Bailey are probably her 2 favorites.
Mm.
And Allison Kay happens to be a friend of mine. And so Becca started wrestling for Belle2Bell. She's been on since the first show, getting better. And I sat back and I thought to myself, and I have a normal 9 to 5 job that pays my bills. It's where the money to start Belle2Bell came from. Um, and I knew Allison Kay was one of her dream matches.
Oh.
Um, so I hit up Allison Kay and I said, "Hey, what do you think?" And she goes, "I'm in." So her flight has actually been paid for since I got my bonus in like March,
Oh.
but it was a very well kept secret. So our last show was in July, and because I run shows every other month, and what Becca didn't know is Becca was the first match. So she goes
Mm.
out, she wins her match, and what I had said to her, it's my other cat, by the way, making an
Ah,
appearance.
yeah, yeah. Hello.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
the same cat. Sorry.
Oh.
Um, what Becca didn't know was I had said to her, I said, "Hey, we're gonna try out this thing after your match. Right after your match is done, stay in the ring for a minute. We're gonna play like a highlight video on the. We have a screen over the ring.
Yeah.
If you don't, pardon me for a second while I get. Sorry.
Uh,
Um, I said we're gonna play this highlight video of
oh.
you just to try out. She's like, okay. Wasn't a highlight video at all. She wins her match. Her opponent comes to the back. The video screen comes on, and it's Allison Kay telling Becca, congratulating her for sticking with it and this, that, and the other. And she had just graduated high school, and she's like, "Happy graduation. I'm coming to Belle2Bell in September. You're going to get your dream match." And then the graphic for the match that I already had done throws up.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Oh.
she was seeing it with the crowd live and utter shock. And then she comes to the back and she's like, "Are you kidding?" And I go, "No, it's been planned since March, kiddo."
Yeah.
And, because again, another thing I thought of was I know when I was that age and that experience in the business, there were dream matches I had that people could have given me and they didn't. But if I'm in a position to do so, why would I not?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so Allison Kay is going to come in next Saturday and wrestle Becca, give her a dream match. So that was something I wanted to do too. Be good to the women who are working their tails off and trying. Um,
Exactly.
so those are kind of the things that I wanted to make the base of Belle2Bell. I have a
Mm.
core group of girls who are on all, if not most, of the shows. And then I rotate in some other talent. So we get fresh faces, people from different areas. My main event on the next show is Notorious Mimi, who's a Monster Factory student. She was signed to WWE NXT. Versus Lena Cross, who's from Australia, has done multiple tours of Japan. So I try to mix in things so the fans are, can fall in love with people and pick their favorites, but also, get some fresh faces in, get different opportunities and different people for these girls to work that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have. And then the biggest accomplishment I have,
Mm.
we have a very young fan. Her name is Liesel. Her dad brought her. She's got to be, I don't know, 6 or 7, I think. Her dad brought her to our second show ever, which was her first wrestling show ever. And
Mm.
she was just enamored. Like, she's so pumped about it now. And, she came in, she'd never been to a wrestling show. And I saw her walk in. I was out by the ring. And I said, "Oh, you never been to a show?" And she's, "No." And I said, "Oh, so you've never been in a ring?" So I picked her up, put her on the edge of the ring. Her dad got some pictures. I said, "Go ahead and climb
Oh.
in."
Yeah.
She climbed in, took some pictures. Like, she was in heaven. And then After that show, her dad kept, she took pictures with a bunch of the girls. Her dad, went online and said to us, like, she's just all about it now. So excited. Gabby Ortiz and Notorious Mimi are like two of her favorites. And then he told us that, and I go, oh, have I got something for that kid?
Yeah.
So our last show she came, every show I print off an 8x10 poster of the show, which has the girls. I print off 4
Oh.
copies and I have them sign it. One we raffle off at intermission. One is for me. And then I have the other 2 to do with, anything I might need. So I actually took one of the extras from the second show and gave it to Liesl since it was her first wrestling show. I'm
Oh,
giving an
amazing.
interview. Do you mind?
Oh,
You have no chill. Sorry.
no problem.
And then I purposely booked Notorious Mimi's match right after intermission.
Yeah.
And towards the end of intermission, I don't know if you're familiar with Notorious Mimi. She comes out with
Yeah.
these huge angel wings on her back.
Ah, yeah.
So right before intermission ends, and Lisa and her dad had front row seats. I said, "Hey, Lisa, you want to come in the back and see something cool with me?" And I looked at her dad and I said, "We'll be right back." So I walk her in the back, and there's Mimi, wings on, and we had gotten a miniature pair of angel wings.
Oh,
And I said, "Hey, do you want to walk? Do you want to go to the ring with Mimi?" And she was like, "Yes." So we put these miniature angel wings on her. Show restarts, and here Liesl comes out. She was wearing a Notorious Mimi t-shirt, I think, with her angel wings on, with Mimi. They do the whole entrance. They pose for pictures. There's no, I don't allow videotaping at my shows.
Yeah. Okay.
You could take still photos without a flash, no videotaping.
Yeah.
But I have a social media guy there who's around the ring taking video clips for me. So I did. He videoed the entire entrance so that I could send it to her dad, who couldn't video it, but man, I bet you he liked a copy. He did all
Yeah.
that.
One.
So the other big thing is that I try to remember is it's about making memories. If you can make memories for these kids, man, you're winning over lifetime wrestling fans.
Exactly.
So you're
Exactly.
extending the life of the history.
I was actually a little touched by that story because I think it's actually what wrestling can do.
Yeah.
Give someone a memory for life or an experience for life that they will never forget and keep on telling
Exactly.
everybody. So
Not only that, but it's the kindness in doing the things that you're able to do for other people that has that ripple effect. They'll then do nice things for other people. It's just a ripple effect for life. And how much greater would life be if we were all just nice to each other?
exactly, because I think always it's like give something to others, but do not expect them to give you something back. But you will eventually, and that's probably something you can call the ripple effect or something like that instead.
Yeah, do for others. My hope when I do nice things for other people is not that they do something back for me, but that they pay it forward at some point to someone else.
Exactly. But one thing, Missy, I think it's interesting also to talk about because we touched it a little bit early on in this interview, but what can you say, the obstacles or the things with women wrestlers and the way they are treated from the other promoters are treating them. Could we dive a little bit into that?
Yeah,
Because I think it's a problem, worldwide problem, that female
I'm sure it
wrestlers
is.
and
I'm sure it is. Well, on a grander scale, not just in wrestling, it's a larger problem. Thus the whole speaking out and Me Too movements that swept everywhere. Women have come a long way in business in general, but there's still a long way to go.
exactly.
And professional wrestlers, pardon me, while most of them are gorgeous and they're in great shape, they're here to do a job. They're here to follow their passion, not consistently be head on. I mean, I've heard so many scary stories of girls, and I've experienced myself,
Yeah.
who have allowed behavior to occur to them strictly because they were afraid if they didn't, they'd be blackballed or, wouldn't be able to do what they love, which is wrestle. So they're compromising their own dignity to be able to do what they love, and no one should have to do that at all. Whether it's, promoters hitting on the girls, or putting them in just god awful uncomfortable situations. Wrestling fans being inappropriate with the girls. Look, I get it. You buy a DVD or rent a pay-per-view in your house, do what you want. I don't care. I've done some matches and stuff where people like, they're going home and pleasuring themselves to that. And I go, if they take it home, they can do what they want with it. They paid for it. I don't care. What they do with it doesn't change that I did it because it was my passion. But then just treating the women particularly as if that's all they're there for, no. That's your own, kink, whatever, and I'm the last person to kink shame anyone. Grown adults should do what grown adults want to do, as long as you're not infringing on someone else.
Exactly. But let's dive into building up the roster and the different types of wrestlers that you have put into your roster. What's important when you look at your roster now, and which steps did you take towards building it?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I started what I would say at home. So, the first people on that roster were Monster Factory, the girls at the Monster Factory. Gabby Ortiz, Notorious Mimi, Stevie Brooks, Nevaeh Madonna. They were the first ones on. Why? I have access to them every week. I know who they are. I know how they work. I know who they'd work best with. I know their attitude, all that stuff. And one of the things I really want, and it's, we strive every show to facilitate it, is I want a locker room that's drama-free, where the girls are uplifting each other, motivating each other. I just want a positive atmosphere, even in the locker room. If you come in for me and you have an attitude and the locker room's not happy with you being there, you're one and done. I'm not bringing you back. I don't care. You could be, the greatest wrestler of all time. You're not coming back. So I started there, and then there were outside female wrestlers who I'm friends with, who I was familiar with. Clara Carreras, Vicious Vicky, people like that. Becca Wiley. Those people got brought in. And it was people who I had seen work elsewhere. Avery Jacks, I had seen work elsewhere. She's a little spitfire. Love that girl. I hit her up. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you have any interest in coming in? She was like, I sure do. I said, you're in. So if I had seen them work and they weren't asking, that was another thing I still run into it, where either a talenter hit me up or I'll hit a talent up and I'll say, what's your rate? What's it going to cost me to bring you in? And if I think they're asking for a fee they don't deserve, like, I'm done. Go be delusional elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You can ask for whatever you want. And if a promoter is willing to pay it, that's great for you. But don't act like I'm a money mark. I've done this longer than any of these girls. So,
you should know a thing or two.
One would hope, so if you're asking me for, a couple $100 and yet you've never been on TV and, come on. So we run into that stuff, but again, I wanted an opportunity. I've been hit up by tons of women that I've never met. I only declined one girl.
Oh.
And that was because she wouldn't have gotten anything out of coming here. She's from down south in the United States. So she would have had to have gotten herself here. I've had people fly themselves in just to work my show.
Oh.
And they pay for their own flights.
Nice.
But this girl didn't have much of a gimmick, very plain looking, very new in wrestling, and it showed. And I said to her, I was very honest, the coach in me kicked in. And I said, "Look, I'm gonna be real honest with you." I said, Your gimmick or lack of one is not going to go over with the fans up here. And I can see how new you are in the way you work. I would want you to get more experience and then get a gimmick." And I never heard back from her. She never responded, and that's fine. But she's pretty much the only person that I've declined to book. Everybody else, I've got Brittany Jade on this show, who's a phenomenal talent out of North Carolina. She was on AEW. You know, she's been a few places. She hit me up. I said, "I know who you are. Absolutely. You want to keep great. Worked out the price. Perfect." You know, stuff like that. I had Hyena Hera, who was on our show Ding Dong, our second show. She's from Georgia. She trains at the Nightmare Factory. um, Pardon me, allergies
Oh,
here are horrible right now.
oh,
She flew herself in from Georgia just to work the show. And she was fantastic. I plan on having her back. I'd like to do it when I could throw her some more money towards her flight.
yeah.
You know, but stuff like that. I've got, I told you Lena Cross is coming in from Australia. I've got another girl who's coming to the United States on vacation in no in my on my November show. And she said, "Hey, I would just like the opportunity to come. You don't have to pay me because of the visas, the work visas. Just looking for an opportunity, different experience." And
Yeah.
I happen to know a bunch of people in Australia, so I reached out to them and was like, "Hey, what about this girl? Tell me about this girl." And I watched some of her work, man. So I was like, "Yeah, come on in. Like, if all you want is an opportunity, I'll find something for you. Come on in." So that's kind of the basis for how we started with the roster. And this whole first year is kind of a feeling out period for me.
Hmm.
And what I say by that is, I have the core girls that I know. And then, a lot of these other girls are coming in for one-offs, right? I'm not delusional. I know I'm a small indie, but for me, they're like tryouts. How do you fit in with my locker room? How do you fit in on my show? You
Hmm.
know, feeling it out. January, we're going to, it's already halfway done. We're going to revamp the roster page where you'll be able to see who the core wrestlers are. And then there's
Oh.
a section that says rotational talent / alumni. Those are people who may come in once during the year, twice during the year, and then just people that have worked for us who may not come back. Who knows? But that kind of thing, because I want to build a core group that the fans can connect with. They know they're going to be there a lot, and then again, continue to rotate in some fresh talent. And if I rotate in a fresh talent, man, and they just are killing it, they come in and they fit in and they're phenomenal. Well, maybe they get bumped to the the regular roster. You know,
Hmm.
so I got a girl who came in one time for us this year, and she'll be on. Most of she's getting a core spot next year,
Oh,
um,
nice.
because she was that phenomenal.
Wow.
And I'll tell you,
And
Sammy Chaos is
yeah.
the girl's name. She's phenomenal.
Ah, amazing. And 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 Missy, it's actually very interesting because could you also tell a little bit how you build up a show towards placing it, which matches you place where and why?
Oh yeah. So, I booked the girls. A lot of the girls, I booked for multiple dates at one time. There are girls who could have told you in March that they were on my November show.
Hmm.
I got my dates for the year and kind of started planning. I left holes. I didn't book every match through the whole year because God knows what's going to happen. Um, Hold on. There's something here, and I'll show it to you. No one has seen this, but bear with me for a second. Sorry. So
Yeah.
this is the Belle2Bell binder
Oh.
or planner, whatever you want to call it. And you'll see here I have
Ah,
pictures. These are
ah,
my
nice.
refs, and
Yeah.
but the wrestlers all have like wallet-sized pictures
Ah,
because I'm a
nice.
visual human being.
Oh, I love
So
it. I love it.
when I go to book stuff, I pull the pictures out, right? Like who looks like they and I know how they work, but who looks, like they would have a good match.
Yeah.
So that's part of how I do it. How do you book the
Mm,
card? I usually like something that I know is going to be a little quick but hot to start the show.
mm,
Um, and again, it depends on what matches I have. I have to look and see, what do I have? I typically put a tag match second, to break it up. Um, and then, you got to fill in the matches and, um, main event is usually what I think the hottest match on the show is going to be. I put something right before it that I know is going to be a great match, but maybe not so intense or fast paced,
mm,
just to bring the crowd down a little bit, before the main event. But that's kind of how I gauge the show.
mm,
And like I lay out all the matches, so it's quick but hot singles, tag match, and then I have to see what else I have to see where it would flow. November, we've got 2 tag matches. So clearly, I don't want to put those back to back. Something's got to go between it. But that's how I try to book the card.
mm,
Um, I think I have 8 matches next week. I try to stick to only booking 7 to 8 matches. Next year I might cut it down to 6, 6 to 7. Um, and try to give the girls in those 6 to 7 matches more time
mm.
to work a little bit longer matches. But that's an idea I'm toying with. So that's kind of how I pardon me. That's kind of how I try to book it. It all depends on what's there. And then you try to
Yeah.
build the show down to the main event.
So do you have like everyone is talking about storyline wise and how to book it that? Do you have a main storyline or do you just have some small going forward or do you just book it from show to show?
Well, again, because the first year was kind of a feeling out period for me, so they're not storyline heavy.
Okay.
There's one or two, small storylines kind of, weaving its way through now. There are some things that we're starting now that people want, if you follow the shows, people will get it next year.
Mm.
They'll see where things started. They
Ah.
don't realize they're watching the beginning of an angle now, but next year they'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Oh,
So, we're planting the seeds now, getting a little bit, in there, but not storyline heavy right now.
okay.
Because again, I wanted to feel out the talent. I didn't know if this was going to be successful at all. I told everyone when I started, if it broke even, I'd be happy. Because again, I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing this to make $1 million. I'm
No.
doing this to provide opportunities to the women that weren't provided to me. Um, so since this was such a feeling out of the girls, the fans, how things flow, I run every other month. There's talk about, you know, running every other month next year or running once a quarter. Still trying to figure that out. So I didn't want to oversaturate the stories with
Mm.
angles and storylines right this minute.
So, what does the future look like for you? Because now you've talked about booking and so on. What could one expect if they want to follow Bell to Bell going forward?
Well, you're gonna see, come January, a little bit more storyline. You'll be able to go back to this year's stuff and pick up the little, Easter eggs that were dropped throughout. Um, we're gonna crown our first champion at the January show. I don't have a
Oh,
date yet. I don't know my dates for next year yet, but the belt came in. I wish I could show it to you. I left it in the car. It came in the other day, and I took it yesterday. Monster Factory had a show, so I took it there so
Oh,
people could see it. But we'll crown our first champion in January. We have the show next Saturday. We have a show November 30th. I'll release right now that the main event on November 30th show is international wrestling sensation Shazza McKenzie from Australia taking on Gabby Ortiz. It was Gabby Ortiz's dream match.
oh,
I said to her, because clearly she came up with the name, she's helped me. I said, hey, if you could wrestle anyone that I can get, who would it be?
yes.
And she said, Shazza McKenzie. I said, done. Again, Shazza, a friend of mine.
Oh, nice.
It helps when they're your friends, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so I've got that coming in. It's kind of me paying homage to her for the help that she gave me on a previous show. Notorious Mimi got to work Ultraviolet. That was a singles match she had wanted that she never got. So when I gave her the opportunity to go, hey, who do you want? She's like, Ultraviolet. I'm like, cool, done. But they can just see not overproduced women's wrestling where the women get to be themselves and be creative. That's what they can see. There's not a lot of hokey with anything we do. And I'm not saying that's not, there's no comedy stuff. We have some comedy stuff in there. Because wrestling's like ice cream, different flavors for everyone. But hey, if people want to follow the product, great. You'll continue to see some really great women's wrestling. You can fall in love with the core group that we have, and you can expect to continue to see some new faces, rotated in and given opportunities.
Interesting. And I think, Missy, we should do this again sometimes in the future. And it's an open invitation.
I would love it.
It's an open invitation.
I'll give you this tidbit
Yes.
that nobody knows.
Yeah.
So here's your exclusive.
Oh.
This year we focused heavy on building singles, right?
Next
year we're going to focus on building tag teams.
Oh, interesting.
So, barring, something happening in the company folding, maybe you'll see tag belts and tag champs by the end of next year. But next year we're gonna focus a little bit on some tag teams. So,
interesting.
I have put I have put 4 tag teams together.
Oh, nice.
They don't tag anywhere else. I put them together. But they'll be unveiled shortly. One of them's on next Saturday's show, the Daughters of Darkness, Amity LeVay and Salem, with being managed by Mother Endless.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what they can expect going into next year. And and if anybody is now interested in Belle2Bell, if you go to Belle2Bell.com, you can actually go back and watch our first show, second show, third show. I don't know what the monetary exchange is between the Dutch mark. Is that what we got?
A Danish krona, actually.
Oh, Danish krona. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the U.S. dollar, it's $8.99 per show. American U.S. dollars. But yeah, and then next Saturday we'll have that show, and within 48 hours of having the show, it'll go up for $8.99.
I will for sure go in and see all the shows after this, Missy.
I appreciate that. Let me know what you think.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Missy, for your time and your passion about women's wrestling. We could feel it all the way to Denmark. So thank you so much again. That. Yeah,
and this was the perfect show for me to do because I'm a wrestler and a nerd. I'm a huge nerd.
Yeah, exactly. And it was actually so hard to find a name for the podcast. We actually changed it a few months ago because all this rebranding stuff, and you have to do something.
I think you nailed it.
In colors. And thank you so much. And Missy, we have just one thing that we would like to say, where the way we always finish the show off with, and it's a shout out and to tell the people that they have to watch wrestling live.
Yes. Watch wrestling live. Find out where local shows are. And then take your friends. If you don't have any friends, go alone. I promise you'll make friends. Wrestling in general tends to be the land of misfit toys. That's for fans and the wrestlers. So, support local indie wrestling, support the wrestlers, buy their merchandise, support the women, but also support this podcast, Wrestlers and Nerds Podcast.
Thank you so much. And
You are
that's
very
all
welcome.
for
Thank you.
yeah. That's all for now. And just one thing that I have to say before ending all this, you have to go on to Instagram and follow Belle2Bell and go and buy the
We're on
shows.
Instagram, Facebook, and X under Belle2Bell. It's right there,
Up
there on the screen for you, spelled out.
Yeah.
And then Belle2Bell.com. We have a website. You can, go on there and see a bunch of stuff. So.
And that's all for now. And thank you so much, Missy.